I started out, I went on with this video with a article I read on LinkedIn. Their thoughts is exactly the way I think about it when someone says you're eating white people food. And the purpose of this video is for a loved one that has told me that. And after I read Chef Mimi's reasoning behind that, I go on to, it's not really an interview, but it's us giving our opinions, and we're from all different backgrounds on that topic. And the purpose is to not make someone feel uncomfortable about their food choices, to not manipulate people because they're from a certain culture. Like in the black community, they say you're not black because you're eating white people food. Number two is do not let anyone say or do things to you that can cause you to question your cultural background by manipulating you to believe what they believe when you desire different. And even bringing up this topic, I had someone say, and they wasn't talking about food, they say someone told them they have a black girl's butt. So, you know, just things to think about and be mindful. And I'm mainly doing this for somebody that's really close to me, a family member that said, that's that white people food. And so the solution is, and those were the purposes, what I just mentioned, and the solution would be understand that all foods are for everyone. It's just about, number one, food preferences. Number two, geographic area where the food comes from. And number three, your way of preparation of food might not be the preference of another person's preference, you know, or your cultural background. So this video is low quality. I just use the resources that I have, which is only a cell phone and the voice recording on my cell phone. So I just use the resources that I have just to make this video, and I'm trying to come up with a solution to that and just expressing my feelings on that. And I thank those that participated and gave me their opinions. Although we're from various different backgrounds, thank you so much, everybody that participated. So I was talking to someone, and I was giving them a couple of different ways they could make their chicken salad and add some ingredients, blah, blah, blah. Pulled up, you know, Gordon Ramsay and somebody else. And I mentioned an ingredient, and they was like, that's that white people stuff, that white people food. And I thought, and I said, okay. You know, here we are. I've been hearing that growing up all my life. And I just never knew what to say. You know, like I just walk away shaking my head like, why do people say that? You know, and I couldn't wait when I lived in New York, couldn't wait to go to Manhattan where I work in the city and just explore all different types of food. That's when I learned about knishes and baklava, and just I used to eat, just love to eat in New York, in Manhattan. Commuted from Queens to Manhattan, and food was my thing. I loved it. I ate everything just tried every different types of food. I was just a foodie. I loved it. Even one time when I was working in Manhattan, a girl said, somebody I worked with said, I'd rather clothe you than feed you, because I would spend my money on good quality food. Anyway, I found a article on LinkedIn, and I want to read this to you. And it just had me thinking, and I said, this is perfect the way she responded
to that same thing that I have always been wondering about all my life. And the title of it is by Chef Mimi. The title of it is Black Girls Don't Eat Avocados, a holistic view of food disparities in the Black community by Chef Mimi. And it says, written by Chef Mimi, contribution, Darling Tiara. I didn't know my food choices qualified my blackness. I learned that lesson swiftly at 9 years old when I showed up on the first day of fourth grade with an ugly avocado sandwich, the brown wheat bread, the spider-like bean sprouts, the creamy green stuff in the middle, inspired a lot of, what is this? What's that? Accompanied by frowns and looks of disdain. They asked me, what, you don't eat meat? And with a grave look of concern, wanted to know, did I think I was white? Because apparently, black people don't eat stuff like that. In hindsight, being raised as a vegetarian was probably one of the healthiest choices my parents ever made for me. But it did nothing for my social capital. Black kids were supposed to like Wonder Bread, junk food, and fried chicken. So was I black? I went to school that day nervous and excited about meeting new people, but I left questioning my whole cultural identity. Over the years, I would soon find that everything associated with advancement outside of sports and entertainment was deemed by my peers as acting white. How could being healthy be naturally inherent to one race? And why didn't people of color have access to the same things? This was foreign territory, and I was an alien amongst my own people. The experience left me feeling perplexed as to how the correlation of food and being culturally accepted made any sense. It seemed that defending my palate meant that I would also constantly have to defend my blackness. Those experiences as a child only made me want to learn more about food. So I went to culinary school. I was determined to become a chef and not just a soul food cook. I was one of two black chefs in my program, and European cuisine was the industry standard. Never mind the array of African and Indian spices and dishes that I had learned to appreciate. Flavors that represented my culture, that represented me. It seemed that the culinary world also agreed that the upper echelon of the food industry was also reserved for whites only. As a working mother, I needed income to provide for my children who were young at the time. So I worked a double shift as a chef and as an advocate through Alameda County's Public Health Department. During that time, I had the pleasure of educating at-risk, low-income women of color who were either pregnant or parenting young children. I went on home visits throughout East and West Oakland to educate on proper nutrition and parenting. During this time, it gave me deeper insight into the negative food messages perpetrated throughout these communities. I learned about candy houses. These are homes that function as makeshift stores where kids in the neighborhood can buy candy, soda, top ramen, donuts, and some of the most unhealthy processed foods imaginable. Many of the mothers use this as another source of income and everyone in the neighborhood called these women the Candy Lady. I found this fascinating because it showed me the ability for entrepreneurship, although they saw it as a way to make extra money. But it bothered me that this tradition of unhealthy foods rings so loud in the black community. Why couldn't the table she so beautifully decorated be filled with fresh fruits, veggies, and foods that nourish the soul? Did they know these foods were toxic to their community? Or was it too deeply embedded in their financial survival? I had a host of questions and started to formulate my own answers and solutions. Here are a few points that inform my work. Number one, black families are consistently being bombarded with images of processed foods. They are surrounded by food swamps, corner stores, gas stations, and fast food restaurants. Number two, there is little to no representation of black chefs cooking real food in the black community. Most black restaurants and chefs carry the same stigma of only cooking fried chicken, soul food, and barbecue. Number three, images of sports figures and hip hop stars, who many kids of color look up to, glorify eating fast foods. These images hurt black communities, which leads to an abundance of health disparities and epidemics such as obesity, diabetes, and cardiovascular disease that are directly linked to food-related diseases. Number four, millions of dollars are poured into food swamps so big business can make money off pushing unhealthy food into impoverished communities. And then she goes on to say, no wonder black people sit at the top of all health issues in America. We must support health change in underrepresented communities and ask ourselves, who will represent the underrepresented? The importance of black chefs and health advocates are needed more than ever. There is a famous quote that says, quote, systems and organizations don't change people. People change people, unquote. Often when health programs are designed, they accomplish the bare minimum. Handing out a flyer that says, eat 5 fruits and veggies daily will not change the lifestyle of a whole community. The shift will happen when the community has people who look like them, creating cultural norms that says it's okay to be black and eat avocado sandwiches, and that eating healthy isn't a race thing. It's a survival thing. It's about quality of life that shouldn't be reserved for white people. We must reclaim our diets and create a cultural shift so no little black boys of girls or girls have to feel like they aren't black simply because of their food choices. I have decided to be that change by entertaining, educating, and calling for action, by showcasing black chefs and creating a trend that supports a cultural shift in communities of color and in culinary spaces traditionally reserved for Europeans and white Americans' flavors. Flavor, dedication, and expertise are all on my menu. What are you bringing to the table? And then it says Chef Mimi's bio. This is pretty deep. This is pretty deep. All my life, I have wondered, how do I answer that question? And she just explained it beautifully. Okay, the question is, and if I don't ask the questions right, you tell me what questions to ask, and you ask. So or have you ever heard why you eating that white people food?
Rephrase your question, please.
What is white people food?
I don't know white people food. Okay, I don't see white people food. Food is food.
It's about preference, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, if I see a food, I'll eat it.
Now, so growing.
Donut, however, is the complete meal. Shannon knows that.
Would you eat donuts with chitterlings and chitlins?
No, just this granulated sugar donut.
And so, coming from where are you from?
Phoenix, Arizona.
No. And where were you born?
To be specific, I live in 1828 West Adams.
Stop that.
Where were you born at?
Where were you born? You don't want to
house.
say? Okay.
You don't. We know you were born in prison. You can say it.
My mom gave birth at me in prison.
Did you know that she was born in prison in the Philippines?
No.
Wait.
Yeah, really.
Nikki, you're on video. I mean, not video, but you're on the voice record. So don't say that if you don't want to. But
Yeah.
you can.
Get over here. Don't leave.
I'll be back.
No.
One-on-one.
No. Say what you were saying earlier.
I was talking about prison. But so chitlins. Will those be considered black food?
I don't know what that is.
So what is fried chicken and watermelon to you?
Oh my God, those are the best thing. That's what we eat in the Philippines. Those are treats. I mean, in the Philippines, that is wealthy food, people.
Okay, so in the Philippines, have you ever heard, don't eat that white people food?
There's no such thing as white people.
But have you, no. We know what we know, right? And we know diversity and how we feel.
Right.
But have you ever heard that saying?
Not even when I came to the United States.
Never.
Never.
I see.
Never heard of it.
Okay. So I was reading a article by Chef Mimi I found it on LinkedIn. And she was saying at 9 years old, her family had raised her as a vegan, right? And she went to school. She's a black girl, black young lady. And at 9 years old, she went to school with an avocado sandwich on wheat toast. And so they looked at her and was like, what? You don't eat meat? And then they said something where she had to explain or defend herself, like to say, I am black. Just because I eat an avocado sandwich doesn't mean that I'm not black.
Huh?
Because they're saying you're not eating black food, you're eating white people food. So for many years, and I've experienced this too, where you have to defend your blackness because of the types of food that you like. And people say, why are you eating that white people food? Like, for example, living in New York, I used to love going into Manhattan because I would get to try different foods. That's where I learned what baklava was, or
Baklava is like the European food.
or knish, yeah. And so I started learning about different foods, and I was able to eat more than soul food that we grew up on. And so, and nowadays, people still say, somebody told me this the other day when I was telling them about a chicken salad sandwich. And I said, I said, okay, here's the way Gordon Ramsay does it. Here's the way such and such does it. And it was like, that's the white people version. Why, like white people food. Blah, 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 blah. And I looked and I was like, damn, this shit still fucking exists. Like, people really do think like this still. So maybe a lot of people have never heard of that. I have heard of it, and I was also addressing the young lady on LinkedIn that brought up her story about it, that it still exists till this day. My first time seeing a white person eating a watermelon, I was like, oh my God, what's good? What's going on?
I think to me it's like I've never heard of like racial food, but I always heard of seasonal food. That's what I have. Like during winter time you eat certain food. During summertime, springtime you eat certain food. And to me, I mean, 4th of July you eat watermelon. Period. That's all I know. Okay? In springtime, you eat berries and citrus food.
Well then, in that case, all of those Hispanic people that like to go to Chinese restaurants have got a problem.
Well, those are cultural stuff, though, because again, it's regional stuff. I don't think it has anything to do. Okay, do they eat watermelon in South America? When South people do they have it? Exactly. That's not what they eat, right? They have dominantly what they produce over there, and they eat like what stuff over there.
So it's like ignorant for people to say that or think that because it's more of a preference of food is where I think we left off.
I mean, where you grew up.
And region.
Right. And seasonal.
When you see kids saying it, especially
You
younger
eat watermelon when they ain't no watermelon in the wintertime?
So say that again. When you see kids saying it,
kids, especially younger kids, they're parroting their parents.
I'm just
From
saying.
their parents. That's not original cooking.
I said, do you eat watermelon when there ain't no watermelon growing in the wintertime?
first of all, I only eat watermelon with seeds, and it has to be
Right.
within season.
There you go. You just said it.
And the little stem end needs to be brown, not green, because I told my daughter that and she brought one home that was
All right,
green.
let's
and
do it,
it's
Nikki.
nasty.
Let's get this show.
So overall, it's so freaking ignorant for somebody to say you're eating black people food, you're eating white people food, but we say it's normal. You're eating Chinese food, you're eating Greek food. Sorry. You know,
These people too much when we all have access to all of it pretty much.
yeah.
And should. And I think it all belongs to all of us.
And I think it's so sad that the way this country was built and the media and, me growing up and living in the black community, I knew we received a lot of the bad foods. Way we grew up,
Creative cooking, trying to do.
it did come from.
You had to get creative so you could eat it.
It's pretty sad. But then we hold each other liable others and make other people feel bad if nobody eats the same way you eat.
Yeah.
But we're the ones with the highest diabetes and cancer disease, and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I grew up in a predominantly white area, probably completely. My parents are both raging bigots, and we were poor, and we didn't have much. We had to learn how to deal with what we had access to, and sometimes it wasn't much. We ate waffles, breakfast, and dinner.
Nikki, let's put
Syrup out of brown sugar and water, and a little bit of white sugar, and that was only because my grandparents gave us care
Can you do me a big favor?
and that was because you just drank it and smoked it. So we didn't have much.
Yes.
And,
Oh my God.
And you're taking him to 12,
He
right?
ate waffles for the rest of his life. You have to do with what you've got, and you learn how to make it work because you don't have other choices sometimes.
And when you say they were raging bigots, that means that they were like,
Loud and proud.
huh?
Loud and proud.
Oh, okay, like
Like they didn't care.
yeah, supremacists and
They
stuff.
didn't
Yeah.
care, and you knew it, and it was not just black people, it was everybody that wasn't white.
Yeah. Yeah.
You needed to share.
Well, you're not alone. A lot of people, have family members and parents and grandparents that come from that era, and that's what they know, right?
I remember my grandparents never saying anything about it on either side, although, with one exception, none of them were very nice people.
Yeah. That's why it's so hard to, it's gonna take a long time, for the love and the hate, and I mean, it's gonna continue. You're always gonna have the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
And, but I think it's time for change,
Big time.
and things are changing. It's just gonna take a while.
I know for a long time, you heard people saying, I don't see color when I'm talking to somebody. But I think that one of the things about that is, and I used to use that phrase myself, because I don't feel like it's an issue for me. But having said that, I think that we need to recognize and accept each other's differences, but not have the differences outweigh the sameness. Like we're all human.
Or not put down somebody because they are different.
Yeah.
Like, we can look at it like, the racial stuff the same way we look at COVID, for example. I think, like me, I say, I'm not getting that doggone shot. I don't want that shot. But it don't mean that I'm come all over everybody and give, the weak people or anybody my disease because I refused to get it until it was mandatory here. But but people actually hated me for that. I lost.
All of us.
Yeah. And so
I don't
No, he's here.
because of their medical condition. I had the shots, I had all the boosters, and I had COVID twice. And one of them put me in the hospital.
After your shots.
Yeah. For 4 days, I had COVID pneumonia. And I think that something like that is personal. Now, having said that, I don't think that's true about childhood immunizations because, like for instance, in some areas, measles are coming back because people aren't vaccinating their kids, and it's getting real bad. And where it was almost completely eradicated. And that's true about some of the other childhood diseases too that would want to immunize their kids. And I get not wanting to put that crap in your kid's body. But on the other hand, not only are you endangering your own kid, you're endangering others too.
Yeah, and then we have to look at the ingredients nowadays is so tampered with where everybody's coming out with autism and
But they have the doctor who first said autism was being caused by that kind of stuff came out later and said he made it up. It wasn't true.
Yeah, but did he really make it up?
fabricated
Because you didn't used to see so many kids.
yeah, you have to see what's going on now, Sharon.
Right, with your own eyes.
Yeah, but they're also saying that autism, and my best friend's grandson has autism. It's real bad for him. He's not like highly functioning at all. But I think a lot of times some of that too is that it just wasn't recognized for what it is in the past.
So when you were a child, did you see as many children like you see now that were like special needs or considered?
No, because if they were, not because it didn't happen, but because back then, a lot of kids who would be considered special needs now were put in institutions.
And do you know there's a difference between TDAP and D whatever? I haven't done my homework yet, but the old one that we got back in the day, I think was, I don't know if it was TDAP, and the new one is DTAP, or vice versa. Like, it's different.
That whole diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis thing.
It's different.
Well, things I suppose, as they discover new stuff, it will change.
But do you think that people are not vaccinating their children because they have lost trust in the government?
Probably, yeah. Yeah, but it's.
I think a lot of kids, a lot of parents are now just, it's not, I think a lot of it is like, okay, they're just doing it for resistance now. You
I
know?
don't think so. I think that there's more information out there than there's ever been.
Oh, yeah.
In this time, and I think people are able to do their own research. People are able to make up their own minds and make feel that they're doing what's best for their own family. I don't think that is.
Well, yeah, I think a good percentage of it is that. But a lot of parents are probably saying, you can't tell me what to do anymore because I have all this information.
Yeah, some of that.
But is there anything wrong with that?
I don't think there is, because
my
it's a free
kids are-
country.
my
But
kids
we
were
have
little,
gone, as a
we didn't
government,
question it.
they have gone to control nowadays.
You said you don't think there's nothing wrong with it, and you said because it's a free country, but I think that there's some contradiction to that after COVID, because how free are we?
That's the other point.
Well, they
It's
did,
like
they made laws.
they're still
You couldn't go places.
exercising.
Yeah, and they made
still
made
have
me
a
inject my body
voice.
with something I didn't want in my body.
Well, the thing what
I mean, because I wanted my job, I didn't want
they
to quit
did
it.
with us,
A lot of people
there
here
is a
didn't
lot
get
of
them anyway.
control.
I usually didn't have to.
I think it has something to do with.
You stuck with it. I punked out and got scared and was like, I'm not ready to retire, and I got it.
When my kids were little, which would have been in the 80s, we didn't question what the
You didn't.
doctors told us to
You did
do.
not.
The doctor said, your kid needs this shot. The school said, without these immunizations, they can't come to school. And so we did it. We just did it.
Because you didn't know better, but you
Right.
didn't have the internet, you didn't have ways to research like you do nowadays.
I had my first baby. I went in and they gave me some medication while I was in labor. And I said, as I was walking around the ward, I said, I'm getting really dizzy. And the nurse said, well, that's the medication we gave you to sedate you. I said, why would you do that? Why would you do that? She goes, well, we just do. And then when I went in, when I went into delivery, I'm laying on the table, they strapped my arms down.
You had a C-section.
No, I did not.
Oh, what?
I was in, and it was a natural birth, and they strapped my arms down so I wouldn't touch myself by grabbing
Oh my
belly button
God.
and having liver pains.
Whoa.
Yes, that was the doctor, and by the time I had my second one, I went in, so 3 years later, I said, don't give me any of that medication, I don't want any of it. And she's like, oh, you're so brave. I go, I'm not brave, I'm smarter than I was 3 years ago. And I go, this is gonna hurt real bad, and I know it, and I don't care. Because they didn't do spinal blocks and that kind of stuff back then. They just sedated you, which did absolutely nothing but make you a little more compliant. You couldn't get up and yell at anybody, you just lay there.
And you couldn't even move your arms.
No,
That's crazy.
no, it was awful. And the doctor still said, as he was stitching you up, I'm gonna take a little extra stitch here for your husband. That the husband stitched.
Wow.
So you're tighter.